hallowed halls of a prestigious Western university, where secular thought often held sway, a professor of philosophy and sociology reigned supreme. Known for his staunch atheism and sharp critiques of religion, he frequently used his platform to challenge the very foundations of faith, particularly Islam. To him, the world was a cold, rational machine, and religion was nothing more than an ancient superstition, a relic of a less enlightened age. He believed his intellect placed him above the unproven beliefs of the masses, and he reveled in dismantling them with eloquent lectures on Darwinian evolution and the triumph of the scientific method. He believed his arguments were irrefutable, his logic a fortress no religious student could breach. So, one afternoon, during a lecture on atheism and science, he turned his focus to a provocative question: how can a Muslim, in this age of scientific progress, believe in a book as ancient as the Quran? His words hung heavy in the air, a verbal challenge that seemed to silence the room. Students listened, some nodding in agreement, others, especially those from conservative religious backgrounds, shifting uncomfortably. He felt a familiar surge of victory, certain he had once again proven his point to a captive audience. But in the back row sat a different kind of student. Her name was Fatima, and she was an exceptional and devout young Muslim woman. Raised in a religious family, she possessed not only a firm belief in her faith, but also a sharp, inquisitive mind, unafraid of intellectual sparring. As the professor concluded and students began to file out, Fatima approached him with a determined look in her eyes. "Professor," she began, her voice steady and respectful, "I believe you've overlooked some crucial facts in your critique of Islam. You claim that faith impedes scientific progress, but allow me to suggest that it can actually deepen our understanding of science and the world around us."
The professor looked at her, surprised. He was accustomed to students' silent acquiescence, not this kind of confident rebuttal. Fatima knew she wasn't going to change his deeply held worldview, but her goal wasn't to convert him. It was simply to present an argument so compelling it would challenge his assumptions. "You constantly mention the conflict between science and religion," she continued. "But are you aware that many of the greatest scientific minds who contributed to medicine, astronomy, and optics were Muslims? Are you aware that the Quran itself encourages Muslims to seek knowledge and use their intellect? Countless verses call for deep reflection, observation, and scientific inquiry." She paused, then added, "Faith in Islam doesn't contradict science, it complements it. For example, the Muslim physician Ibn Sina was a pioneer in medicine and philosophy. Ibn al-Haytham laid the foundations for the field of optics. Do you truly believe these groundbreaking achievements happened in a culture that rejected science?" A sarcastic smile played on the professor's lips. "You're speaking of medieval examples," he scoffed. "We live in an age of technology, where there is no place for superstitions. Modern science simply cannot be reconciled with ancient dogma." Fatima was unfazed. "There may be those who see science and religion as incompatible," she said calmly, "but I see a different relationship. Religion gives us a higher purpose in life, to strive for good and sustainable progress. If science is the only path to understanding the world, then how do you explain human values? How do you explain the existence of love and sacrifice, which cannot be quantified or explained by a scientific equation?" She concluded her argument with a powerful statement. "The mind and faith are not at war. They are two sides of the same coin. Science explains how the universe works, but religion explains why. Science answers the questions of how, while faith answers the questions of why.
Though he remained a skeptic, Fatima had planted a seed of doubt in his mind. He felt a flicker of intellectual humility and a pang of embarrassment that the debate had taken such an unexpected turn. He had no immediate answer to her questions, and for the first time, he felt his own ideas had been scrutinized in a way he never thought possible. "Are you suggesting, then," he asked, "that science should be subservient to religion?" Fatima replied with unwavering confidence, "No, I am simply saying that science should be understood within a broader human context, a context of values and faith. It should be used to serve humanity, not just to achieve scientific or material ambitions." This moment was a turning point for the professor. While he never publicly admitted it, this simple student had forced him to pause and reconsider his fundamental questions about religion and science. Over time, he began to think more deeply about the role faith played in people's lives and how critical thinking must also include a respect for belief and spirituality. Fatima proved that faith and science don't have to be opposing forces. They can, in fact, work together to achieve higher goals. Her courageous and well-reasoned defense, backed by knowledge and wisdom, didn't just challenge one man's prejudice, it offered a valuable lesson for all who witnessed it. That speaking up for what you believe in, with intelligence and grace, has the power to change minds. The professor remained standing, eyes fixed on the space where Fatima had stood. For years he had spoken and students had listened. But today, he listened, truly listened. Later that night, alone in his office, he opened a browser and typed a phrase he never thought he'd search. Quran verses about knowledge and science. What he found wasn't superstition, it was reflection, complexity, purpose. In the following weeks, his tone in lectures changed, not entirely, but noticeably. He asked more questions than he answered. He began to mention Muslim scholars in his examples, not to disprove them, but to acknowledge their impact. Ibn Sina, al-Razi, Ibn al-Haytham, names he had once brushed aside. As for Fatima, she continued her studies quietly. She didn't seek praise nor fame, but her classmates saw her differently now, not just as the quiet Muslim girl in the back row, but as someone who stood when no one else dared. One day, a classmate approached her and asked, "How did you stay so calm back there?" She smiled and simply said, "Truth doesn't need to shout, it only needs to be said." And in that moment, she understood something deeper. It wasn't about winning an argument, it was about being a mirror, reflecting what you believe with sincerity, so that others might see it clearly for the first time. That was her victory. And maybe it was his first step.